You're standing in the middle of your field, the sun's going down, and the screen on your brand new tractor is glowing orange, telling you to call the dealer before it'll move another foot. That machine cost you more than your first house. And right now it's a very expensive lawn ornament. Here's what nobody on that dealership lot will ever say out loud. A 40-year-old tractor with no computer in it is now worth more dollar for working dollar than the shiny new one they're trying to finance you into. I know, 'cause I bought both, and only one of them ever left me stranded at dusk with a full grain cart and nowhere to go. Before we're done, I'll show you the exact stretch of model years that auction records and Iowa State University itself have quietly confirmed are climbing in value while brand new iron sits and rots. And if you already own one of these lockdown machines and you're feeling sick to your stomach right now, stay with me. There's a door out for you too. Let me take you back to the moment it clicked for me. It was the third week of September, harvest bearing down, and my newer sprayer threw a code in the low ground by the creek line. Not a broken part. A sensor reading the dealer's computer didn't like. I stood there in the dust with my phone, listening to hold music, watching a perfectly good machine refuse to do the one thing I bought it to do. That was the night I started asking a question that changed how I spend every dollar. Who actually owns this thing? Me or them? Now here's the part that sounds impossible until you see the numbers. Old tractors, the kind with cable throttles and mechanical fuel injection and not a single line of software, are selling at auction for prices that make no sense on paper. I've watched a 1980 John Deere 4440, a tractor built when Carter was in the White House, cross the auction block for more than $50,000. That's a tractor that originally sold for around $30,000 brand new. 40-some years later, it's worth more than the day it was built. Try that with a pickup, try that with anything, and it isn't one freak sale. The man who tracks this better than anyone, Greg Peterson, the fellow behind Machinery Pete, has been logging farm auction results since the late 1980s. He's been sounding the alarm for years now that clean, low-hour, older tractors keep breaking records. Machines from the 1970s and 80s, the simple ones, are the hottest sellers in the used market. Back in 2020, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune ran a story on exactly this, and they quoted an agricultural engineer from Iowa State University Extension named Chris Cole. His point was plain. Farmers were hunting down 40-year-old tractors on purpose and paying up because those machines do the work without the headaches. So why would a grown man with money in the bank chase down a tractor older than some of his equipment loans? That's the question that pulls the whole thing apart. Because the answer isn't nostalgia. It isn't guys wanting to relive their daddy's farm. It's cold math. And once you see the math, you can't unsee it. Let me walk you through what I paid, because I live both sides of this. I've got a late model tractor with a full emission system and a display that talks to a satellite. And I've got an old workhorse with a mechanical injection pump that I can rebuild on a bench with hand tools. Over the last few seasons, the old one has cost me almost nothing but fuel, oil, and filters. The new one has cost me thousands in dealer visits for problems that were never mechanical. They were digital. A regeneration cycle that failed. A fluid sensor that lied. A code that locked the power down to a crawl in the middle of a job. Every one of those trips started with a truck coming out at $150 an hour just to plug in a laptop I'm not allowed to own. That's the trap. And here's the first thing you need to understand about how it closed around us. It didn't happen all at once. It came in through the tailpipe. Somewhere around 2014 and 2015, a set of federal emissions rules called Tier 4 Final came into full force for off-road diesel engines. Now, I'm not here to argue about clean air. Cleaner air is fine by me. But to meet those rules, the manufacturers bolted a whole second nervous system onto every tractor. Diesel, exhaust fluid tanks, selective catalytic reduction, diesel particulate filters that have to burn themselves clean on a schedule the computer decides, dozens of new sensors. And every one of those sensors talks to a control unit. And that control unit answers to software. And that software, my friend, does not answer to you. Here's where it turns. Because the companies figured out something powerful. Once the machine runs on software, they don't have to sell you a tractor anymore. They can sell you a tractor and keep the keys. They can write the code so that when a sensor trips, The machine won't run at full power until an authorized technician clears it. Not a part you replace, a permission you have to request from them, on their schedule, at their price. So the older tractors, the ones built before all that plumbing, suddenly had a quality the new ones lost. They were finishable. You could finish the job. A hydraulic hose blows on a 1985 tractor, you drive to the parts store, you build a new hose, you're back in the field before supper. A regen fails on a new one, and the software derates you. You're calling a dealer and praying they've got an opening this week. During harvest, that gap isn't an inconvenience. That gap is your whole year. And that's the part that started making these old machines appreciate. It's not that the old iron got better. It's that the new iron came with a leash, and the market figured out that a tractor with no leash is worth a premium. Every year the software gets tighter, the freedom of the old stuff gets more valuable. It's supply and demand, except the supply is freedom, and they stop making it. But knowing why old tractors are hot doesn't get you out of anything by itself. You need to understand how deep the hole goes before you can climb out, because the leash is only the first layer. When something goes wrong on a modern tractor, the fix often starts with reading the trouble codes and clearing them. On the old machines, a code was a light in a manual. On the new ones, you need the manufacturer's own software to even see what's wrong, and then to tell the machine it's allowed to run again. For years, farmers couldn't buy that software at any price. It was dealer only, locked, and the independent mechanic down the road, the guy who's fixed everything you own for 30 years, was shut out completely. He could hear the engine, feel the problem, know the fix in his bones, and still be unable to turn the tractor back on because he didn't have a corporate login. Think about what that does to a man. You own the machine outright, paid in full, and you are legally not permitted to make it run. That's not ownership. That's a rental with extra steps and a bigger down payment. This isn't me spinning a theory. In May of 2021, the Federal Trade Commission put out a report to Congress called Nixing the Fix. It laid out, in the government's own words, how manufacturers across industries were using repair restrictions to squeeze customers, and it named agricultural equipment as a problem area. The regulators saw it, they wrote it down, and still, out in the field, nothing changed for us for a good while. The bill kept coming. And the bills, let me tell you about the bills. I've got neighbors who've shown me invoices that read like a bad joke. A service call where the actual part was under $200, and the total came to over $2,000. Once you added the trip charge, the diagnostic time, the labor, and the software fee to clear the code. I've heard of guys losing days of harvest weather, thousands of dollars of standing crop shelling out in the field, waiting on a technician while the sky turned. You can't put a trip charge on that loss. There's no line item for the wheat you didn't get in the bin. So here's the layer under the layer. It was never really about the repair. The repair is the toll booth. The real product they built was dependence. A machine that has to come back to them over and over for its entire life on terms they set. You bought the tractor once, but you keep paying rent on the right to use it. And the longer you own it, the more that rent adds up, until one day you look at the old mechanical tractor in the back shed, the one you almost sold for scrap, and you realize it's the only thing you own free and clear. Now, somebody had to profit from all this, and somebody did. And this is where I stopped being polite about it. Because when farmers started fighting back, when right to repair bills started getting introduced in state after state, the biggest manufacturer in the business did something very clever. In January of 2023, on the 8th of the month, John Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation. A big handshake deal. Lots of headlines about farmers finally getting the right to repair their own equipment. Before I show you exactly how deep the diagnostic trap goes, I want to hand you the whole map out of it. Picture yourself right now, standing in that shed at dusk, staring at the orange screen that just turned your paid-for machine into a lawn ornament, wondering if you're the only one who feels this trapped. You're not. And there's a full way out written down for you. That's what the Complete Iron Furrow system does. It's the whole field manual, 3 volumes you can download and read tonight. It exposes what your dealer agreement actually lets them control, and it lays out 5 real cash recovery moves ranked by honest effort and return, so you stop pouring money into a machine they keep the keys to. It gives you a 12-month field map from that invoice shock straight to running your own iron without asking permission from anybody. And here's a free check you can run this very night before you spend a dime. Pull the last dealer invoice you've got in that kitchen drawer. Add up the trip charge, the diagnostic time, and the software fee to clear the code, and set that number next to the price of the actual part. That gap, right there, is what they built to keep you renting. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And here's the honest reason to look now, not someday. Harvest comes every single year, and the day a sensor trips is the worst day to start learning your way out. Get ready before the field is against you. Because next, I'm going to walk you through the diagnostic tool itself and the exact moment I figured out you own the machine but you're not allowed to make it run. Now, back to that diagnostic tool, because this is where I really got angry. But read the fine print, because I did. That memorandum was not a law. It had no teeth. It was a voluntary agreement, and in exchange for it, the Farm Bureau agreed to encourage its members and state chapters to refrain from pushing for actual right to repair legislation. Read that again slowly. The deal that was sold as a win for farmers included a promise to back off the laws that would have actually forced the companies to change. It was a pressure release valve. Just enough give to take the wind out of the movement without ever handing over the one thing that matters, which is a legal, enforceable right to fix what you own. And that's the villain, fully in the light now. It was never one bad dealer or one greedy service manager. It's an entire structure. They built the software leash. They locked the diagnostic tools. They wrote the terms of your own repairs. And when the pressure got too high, they cut a deal with the very organization that's supposed to represent you to make sure the pressure went away. That is not an accident. That is a strategy executed over years, funded by people who understood exactly what they were doing to your independence. But here's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on the old iron. They can control the machines they still hold the keys to. They cannot control a 40-year-old tractor with no computer in it. And that's why the market flipped. Now, I need to stop and talk directly to you. If you're sitting there in your recliner right now thinking this is all fine for the fella shopping for his next tractor, but you already own one of these locked up machines, and you feel like the door already slammed shut behind you, this next part is for you specifically. Don't you dare tune out, because there are real moves you can make this week with the machine you already have without crawling back to the dealer with your hat in your hand. First thing, in 2 states so far, the ground has genuinely shifted, and it changes your options depending on where you sit. Colorado did what the memorandum wouldn't. On the 25th of April, 2023, Colorado signed the Consumer Right to Repair Agricultural Equipment Act into law, and it took effect on the 1st of January, 2024. That was the first real enforceable law in the country forcing manufacturers to give farmers and independent shops access to the tools, the software, the parts, and the documentation to fix their own agricultural equipment. It is a law, not a handshake. If you farm in a state that has passed one of these, you have a legal right to demand those diagnostic tools and manuals, and the manufacturer has to provide them. Most farmers in those states still have no idea the law exists. Use it. Ask for the tools in writing. Make them tell you no on paper. Second thing, and this one works everywhere, regardless of your state, you do not have to accept that the dealer is your only source for diagnostics. There is now a small but growing market of aftermarket and independent diagnostic tools and adapters that read the same equipment. There's software farmers have gotten their hands on, and there are independent shops quietly building the capability to service these machines outside the dealer network. The reason those exist is that enough people refuse to accept the leash. Find the independent mechanic in your area who's been investing in this. Build that relationship now, before harvest, not during it. Third thing, and this is the one that costs you nothing but a phone call. Before you ever buy another machine, before you trade, you demand 2 things in writing from any seller. You demand to know whether the parts and the diagnostic access are available to you as the owner, and you demand a straight answer on whether the machine will derate or lock if a sensor fails. Get it in writing. A salesman will tell you anything with his mouth. Very few will lie to you on paper. And if he won't put it in writing, You just learned everything you needed to know about that machine. And the fourth move, the biggest one, is the whole point of this video. And it's the one that turns you from a trapped owner into somebody with leverage. You keep your old iron, you stop treating that mechanical tractor in the back of the shed like a liability, and you start treating it like the appreciating asset it has quietly become. Because here's what I learned the hard way. The escape route out of the trap was never buying my way into something newer. The escape route was already parked on my own farm. So let me bring you all the way to the thing I promised at the start, the specific window, the one that the auction records and the extension engineers have quietly confirmed that almost nobody is saying out loud because there's no money in telling you to keep what you already own. Here's the finale, and it comes straight out of the auction data and out of Iowa State's own extension work. There is a sweet spot of model years that behave like nothing else on the farm. On the bottom end, you've got the true mechanical tractors, the machines from the 1970s and 80s, the 4000 and 4400 and 4960 series, the simple diesels with mechanical injection and no emissions plumbing at all. Those are the ones setting auction records, the ones Chris Cole at Iowa State pointed at back in 2020 when he told that reporter farmers were deliberately hunting them down. A clean, low-hour example of one of those is not depreciating. It is climbing year over year because they will never build another one. But here's the part almost nobody puts together, and this is the real key I dug up. There's a second window that matters even more for a working farm, and that's the last model years before Tier 4 Final locked everything down. The machines built up through roughly 2013 and into 2014, before the full emissions and software leash came bolted on as standard. Those tractors are modern enough to have the comfort, the power, and the hydraulics you need to actually farm today. But they came from the factory without the derate and call the dealer software strangling them. That is the golden band. Old enough to be free, new enough to work. And the market has figured it out, which is exactly why clean examples in that window hold their value like a rock, while the newest, most locked down iron drops the second it leaves the lot. That's the door out of the labyrinth, and it was sitting in plain sight the whole time, buried under fine print and dealer sales pitches. The way out existed. They just made sure you were always looking at the new row on the lot instead of the honest machine in the back. One community of farmers and auctioneers and stubborn old mechanics kept that knowledge alive, kept those machines running, kept bidding them up, and now you can walk right through that door yourself. So here's what you actually do with it. You hunt the golden band. You find the low-hour, well-kept tractor from that pre-emissions window, or the true mechanical classic if the job's simple enough for it. You buy the machine you can finish the job with. You build the relationship with the independent mechanic before you need him. And in the states that pass the real laws, you demand the tools that are now legally yours. You stop renting your own iron from a company that decided your ownership was optional. And the beautiful part, the part that keeps me warm at night, is that the machine you buy to get free is the same machine that's going up in value while their new one goes down. You're not just escaping the trap. You're buying an asset they can't reach into and shut off. I chased my whole adult life after newer, bigger, more computerized, thinking that was the way forward. And the day I finally stood in my shed and looked at the old tractor that never once left me stranded, I understood I'd been sold a story. Freedom wasn't in the next purchase. Freedom was the thing they quietly took out of every machine after a certain year, and it was still sitting right there in the old iron, waiting for me to notice what I already owned. You're the kind of person who was raised to believe that when you buy a thing, it's yours. That a man ought to be able to fix what he paid for on his own ground, with his own hands, without asking permission from a company 2,000 miles away. That belief isn't old-fashioned. It's the whole point, and they've spent a lot of money betting you'd forget it. Don't give them the satisfaction. Now I want to hear from you, because this only works when we compare notes over the fence. Tell me the worst invoice you ever got handed for a repair you could have done yourself, the trip charge and the software fee and all of it, the number that made your stomach drop. And tell me the one old tractor you've got or wish you'd never sold, the one that always started and never once locked you out. Put it in the comments right now. Name the machine, name the year, tell me where you're farming from. I read them, and so does everybody else who's trying to get free, and your number might be the one that opens somebody else's eyes tonight. And if you're done being a renter on land you own, done paying rent on iron you paid for in full, then come stand with the rest of us who are taking our machines back one honest tractor at a time. Because next time, I'm pulling the lid off something bigger. I'm going to show you exactly what happens to the resale value of a fully locked down machine the day the manufacturer decides to stop supporting its software, and why the tractor you're financing right now might be worth almost nothing the moment they pull the plug. You'll want to see that number before you sign anything. I sure wish somebody had shown it to me. Now, this video showed you why those old machines are climbing, but stay with me inside the Right to Repair, and I'll walk you through the exact model years with the auction numbers so you know precisely what to buy. In there you can ask me your own question, and a real person me answers you myself. You won't be doing it alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now here's the question every farmer's asking. Can you finally fix your own machine without begging a dealer? That John Deere lawsuit could change everything. And I break it all down right here. It's starting now.